Hi, Gene here with today's thought. I live in Tennessee. That's where I'm recording right now, my home just outside of Memphis in Tennessee. But I've said this in the past. I used to live in New York. I lived in New York for 40 years. Born in Detroit, that's where I grew up. And I moved to New York in 1977 and lived there until January 2019 when I moved to where I am now in Tennessee. So I miss the unlawful aliens that Texas, the governor of Texas, is so kindly sending to New York. Obviously, I'm being facetious. Kindly, they don't take it too kindly in New York City, but I missed all that. What I didn't miss, and the reason I left, was the homeless people I was starting to see all over the place, and the increase in crime starting. I was lucky though. I left before as I said, the unlawful aliens. I left before the legalization of marijuana. I left before the coronavirus mess. I just the general craziness. I just could not live there anymore. Oh, and the high cost of living. I lived in a little tiny apartment up in Harlem, and as you can see, I'm not exactly Generation Z, and I wasn't looking forward to spending the rest of my life in a tiny little apartment in Harlem. Now I live in a three-floor condo for about the same as what I was paying in New York for a tiny apartment. And I have a car, I have a backyard, I got 3 floors, and just overall, there are things I miss about New York. I go back to visit every so often, but it was generally the general craziness that started. There was a golden age when Rudy Giuliani was mayor. That's when New York. When I moved to New York first in '77, Abe Beame was the mayor, and New York was not so nice. But I was young, was adventurous, yada yada yada. But when he came, then Dinkins was a disaster. Koch was kind of okay. Giuliani turned that whole city around. It was thought to be ungovernable, New York City, until Rudy came along and showed that it was. And then after him, Mike Bloomberg. To be fair, he was a good mayor too. A little bit, they called him Nanny Bloomberg. I won't get into details, but he was overall a good mayor, and the city was safe. But it was less safe. Just all this craziness in New York. But I go, as I said, I go back to visit every so often, and before the legalization of marijuana and people shooting up drugs on the street, I missed all that too, and I'm not sad that I missed it. But I do, as I said, go back to visit every so often, and I read the news. I get you get these updates in your inbox, your email every day. So I get one from the New York Post. So I follow what goes on in New York because I lived there for 40 years. I care what goes on there. I'm happy I don't have to experience it, but I care about it. And just how crazy New York is getting. And here is the latest example. It's very, this is in the same categories. They got rid of plastic bags, and you have to bring you have to bring your own bag to prevent waste. I think you can get paper bags at they do that out here in Tennessee. That's just their general policy. Trader Joe's, they give you paper bags. But you go in there and you buy other stuff. Everything is wrapped in plastic. That's how stupid that policy is. It's just wokeism. It's just virtue signaling. So you buy your hamburger in plastic, your cheese wrapped in plastic, your prepared meals, that you put in the microwave wrapped in plastic, your frozen vegetables wrapped in plastic, and then they put it all in a paper bag, and you're supposed to feel like you're doing something for the environment. I mean, and plus you got to cut down all those trees, right? Well, maybe it's recycled paper. Who cares? The point is, they came up with something new. They just keep surprising me, and it's you know how you order from, say, Chinese takeout or something, and you order, and they'll give you, they'll put the food in there, and then they'll throw in, plastic fork, and if soy sauce if it's Chinese and it's somewhere else, and then it'll be little packets of ketchup or salt or something. There's now a law against that. That restaurants and that places carry out restaurants or food vendors in New York City now can no longer just put plastic utensils and plastic wrap condiments into, they can't include that with the order. You don't get any unless you ask for it. The customer has to ask for it, and it's a $250 fine. And I can see all kinds of possibilities of mischief. I don't know how with the amount. Well, I mean, look at the marijuana. They legalized marijuana, and you're supposed to get a license to open a legal marijuana shop. So I think there are like 11 or 12, just a handful of legal marijuana shops in New York City, but there are literally hundreds of illegal ones, and they're only able to shut them down. Maybe they work, they'll shut down maybe 10 or 11, like a dozen a week. 16, I think, was the number I heard. And then, as they're shutting those down, they'll shut down, one, and then two more will open up somewhere else. That's so stupid. But how do you police, like where I lived up in Harlem, some little hole in the wall Chinese restaurant? If they put, are you really going to find these little guys? $250. But how do you police all these things? I guess would be a customer complaining, calling the New York, police department, the NYPD. They have nothing better to do, and say, I just got a plastic fork that I didn't ask for, so you go arrest them or something. And I can see possibilities of blackmail and say, I'll call a restaurant and say, unless you give me $100, I'm going to call the police and say that you sent me a plastic fork I didn't ask for, and you'll have to pay a $250 fine. It is just so ridiculous. One of the reasons I moved, but it's just, if you live anywhere else in the country, well, maybe not. If you live in, maybe Los Angeles is California, these Berkeley, these woke places in California, maybe they'll adopt the same law. Who knows? It's just insanity all the way down. But that was my thought for today. I just wanted to share that with everybody. And if you could subscribe, that would really be great. But I would love to see all of you again, even if you don't subscribe. And until I do, bye.